This video is sponsored by PCBWay. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'm gonna take a look at the graphics card. So, I just got in 3 new graphics cards. This is one of them. This is the one I'm probably going to mess around with the most, and it's also the one that's in the most questionable state. So, this is an HD 7950 from Sapphire. It comes with this big custom GPU heatsink, and this is basically the only reason why I bought it, because it comes with this heatsink. I saw it has a rather nice backplate, and it has mounting for different GPUs, and it is a pretty decent heatsink, and the entire thing was 15 euros, and I get a working 7950 with it. And that's why I bought it. And this is also the Sapphire PCB, so this is not a reference, it's somewhat like a reference, but it's not a reference. It has the 2 8-pins, and it has, as far as I know, a pretty nice VRM with IR direct FETs, which is what we're going to take a look at here. So, yeah, I think this is just going to be interesting to take a look at the card. I did already test this, and it does run, it installs the drivers, it's fine. The only issue I've seen so far is that it only shows up at 4 PCIe lanes. I'm not sure if that's a problem with the card or with the board I put it in, or just a thing of, because some cards do it, it's just like you just reinsert them and then they show up at all 16 lanes. The only thing I will say is that this card is kind of bent. Like, both the heatsink and the card are kind of bent, and including the screws on here, like, some of these are like bent, if you can see that. So I want to see what it looks like under the heatsink. I can hopefully reuse the heatsink, like the screws for it seem bent, but you can probably source new screws for the heatsink. Oh yeah, so this has end nuts, so the screws below it are probably bent. I like that it has the backplate, this is a pretty nice touch. Oh, this one is really... this one's not coming off. This one is, but that last one... Okay, I'm getting the emergency tool. Wait a minute. The emergency tool. There we go. Before we continue, I'd like to thank my sponsor, PCBWay. If you are working on a project of your own that requires parts that would be hard to make yourself, or just generally parts at a much higher quality standard, you can go to PCBWay's website and order anything from PCB prototypes, assemblies, CNC parts, 3D printed parts, as well as stencils or even flexible circuit boards. The ordering process is simple. You just upload your files, tell them some stuff that you need, and you'll quickly receive a quote, which once accepted, will mean that your part can get shipped out within as fast as 24 hours. And if you have any questions or require further help, they even have a live chat service that stands ready for you. So if you need some custom-made project parts, don't delay, go to PCBWay today. Okay, quite a lot of mounting pressure, but that's good, we want to see that. And let's take the card off. And the thermal paste spread looks good. Yeah. Yeah, and like you can see that the it's a bit bent. So hopefully I can fix that, just bending it back maybe. Or find a replacement. Oh, this one has the... okay, that is slightly problematic. So it has all the mounting holes for like different cards, but it has the raised section for 7950s. Can I remove that? I heard that sometimes this is just like a metal shim that you can remove, but I'm not so sure if I can. If that would be kind of bad if this isn't removable, because then I can only use it on like 7950s and cards like it that have like the 45-degree angle on the die. Because this is a pretty nice heatsink. I like this. I kind of want to use this on other stuff as well. So yeah. Let's take a look at the card itself. So, yeah, this is a Sapphire card. You can tell because that's a Sapphire logo right there. And also, I remember this PCB. Yeah, I don't think it actually says anything else that it's a Sapphire card. Usually they have like a Sapphire sticker on the display outs, but this one doesn't. This also has a black I/O shield, which is interesting. So yeah, in typical custom aftermarket cooler fashion, there's a bunch of little heatsinks on the VRAM. I checked this one. This has... Wait, I forgot. Oh wait, this has Elpida BBBG VRAM. So it's not the best, but it's okay. And we're gonna try to carefully remove the heatsinks by twisting them. So if you don't know how to get these heatsinks off without destroying the chips, you twist them off. Like, you don't rip them off. Oh, and this is gonna break the heatsink quite badly because it's gonna bend them. But yeah, the problem with these heatsinks that get glued onto the chips is if you remove them by trying to rip them off, you will rip the chip off with it, and then the card is dead because, yeah, you're not coming back from that. And this way, you just shear the glue in half. You can see the Elpida logo very clearly on this one. But yeah, this is how I do it, and I've never killed a card while doing this. You have to be careful to not slip, because I have slipped before with... It was a 980 Ti, like my really good 980 Ti, the Zotac with the very interesting 8-phase, where like, it's not great MOSFETs, but they just kind of have a lot of them. And something just fall over? I don't know. But yeah, I removed the heatsinks from that one, and I didn't damage a chip, but I slipped and ended up knocking off an inductor for the PEX rail. So yeah, I didn't just end up replacing that inductor, and the card works, but like, you have to be careful. So yeah, that's the heatsinks off. It should be Elpida BBBG. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can kind of, yeah, you can see here that it's Elpida BBBG. So yeah, I have a card. I actually have basically this card with that. I have an R9 280 from MSI with BBBG, and the R9 280 is just this card but refreshed. So specifically, this seems to be an original model because it has 1250 mem and 950 core stock clocks. So this seems to be an OG model of the 7950, so not a boost card and not a refresh. So this might have a pretty good core on it. And yeah, on that R9 280 I have, it also has BBBG, and you know, Elpida is not great. Like, typically people don't like Elpida chips, but actually they're not too bad in my experience, because on Tahiti you wanna mod your memory timings, because otherwise you're just leaving a lot of performance on the table, and Elpida chips are pretty good at modded memory timings, at least the one card I already have. It ran 1250 timings, and the efficiency was basically the same as Hynix AFR, which is one of the better chips. Like, there's also Hynix MFR, which is not that great. So yeah, like, with modded memory timings, these might actually be okay. So yeah, the controller should be a CHL8318. Oh wait, it's an A228G, never mind. The 8318 is... I don't know. But yeah, A228G. I confused them. Yeah, so this is like the typical Tahiti card controller. It's a dual output. This should... Actually, does it? Actually, I think this does core and memory, and then VDDCI over here is like its own thing. I'm not too sure, because I don't see a second thing that could be a PWM controller around the memory VRM, because that just looks like a driver. Admittedly, this could also be a driver, but it has more stuff around it, so I think this is a PWM controller with integrated drivers. So I think the A228G controls these 8 phases, 7 of which are gonna be core, one is gonna be mem. Which one? The one up top is mem, you can see the power plane splits. if I hold it into the light right, you can see, yeah, you can see how the outputs of all of these lower 7 are connected together, and then the one up top is different. So this up top is the memory, the lower 7 are core, and then this over here, this one phase is VDDCI. So yeah, let's take a look at the VRM, because this, like I said already, as far as I know, this is a pretty nice VRM with, and the screwdriver's too small. The only other screwdriver I have here is like massive. Does this one work? No, this one's too big. Wait, there's another screwdriver over here. This might be the correct size. It kinda works, but it also kinda doesn't wanna. Why is the screw stuck? Oh my god. The screw doesn't wanna come out. Does the other one come out? This one comes out. How tight? You know what? I'm gonna use the emergency tool again. Yeah. Oh god, it. There we go. Now it comes out. Even the emergency tool had problems. So that's the VRM heatsink off, and let's take a look. Yep, that's exactly what I expected. Well, that thermal pad is nasty. Why is it so dark? This is not that great. But yeah, this is the VRM that I was expecting. So these are some pretty nice IR direct fits. What exact model are these? Oh, I can't really see it. You can probably read it on the camera just fine, but the angle is kind of weird for me to read. But yeah, like, these are probably the same ones that you have on the reference PCB. Wait, how many phases does the reference card have? I think the reference card is a 6-phase V-core? Is it? Well, actually the reference is a 5-phase, and then there's like an option for an extra phase on the reference PCB. So that would be a 6th if you fully kit it out. So this is like one extra phase. Not gonna complain, like the reference, if you have all the 6 phases, is pretty good. If you have 5 phases, I'm not too sure about that, but yeah, because like these cards, especially the 7970, so this is like the cut down variant, the 7950 has a few less cores, but like especially the 7970s, these are 28 nanometer cards, and 28 nanometer cards are some of my favorite cards to mess with, because they scale. Like, they scale a lot with temperature and voltage. So, yeah, these cards at stock pull something like 120 to 150 watts, I think. Once you overclock them, you can go like way above 300 watts. So having a nice VRM on this is pretty nice. So yeah, I don't think I have to take this part off. That's just a single phase with like the same MOSFETs again for VDDCI. And yeah, do I have? I do. Clean off the die, because one thing I want to figure out is if this is a recessed die or if it's not a recessed die, because there's 2 variants of Tahiti core that you can have, one which sits lower than the metal shim around it and one which doesn't. And I want to know which version this is. As far as I know, the early ones tend to be the recessed version. Because I kind of think that this is an early version. If it's a recessed one, I'll take that as extra proof. No, it actually isn't. If you look at it from the side, you can kind of see it does stick out over the shim just a little bit. So this is actually not a recessed die. So maybe this isn't an early batch then, or maybe, like, I don't know. Both kinds may have been around for the early ones, because like this has 950 core and 1250 memory stock speed. So yeah, and like it doesn't, it just says Vapor X. Yeah, like this doesn't mention being a boost or a gigahertz edition, so might be an OG model, which is good, because the OG models tend to be better at overclocking. Also, the camera went out of focus. Yeah, so I kind of hope that this is an OG model. My other 7950 that ended up dying is also an OG model, and that did pretty well on core. It just had Hynix MFR, which is not great. And this, despite being Elpida, might actually be better, because in my experience, Elpida has been on par with Hynix AFR, which is better than MFR. So yeah, and this of course also has the better VRM, because my other 7950 was a reference PCB, so that's a 6-phase V-core with a single-phase memory and actually a 2-phase VDDCI, funnily enough. And that one had standard SOP8 discrete MOSFETs, and I did actually end up upgrading that VRM because it only had one low side. So I did a really sketchy thing of like getting a completely different MOSFET and soldering them to the second unpopulated low side spot. And I think I actually did that with one of the high sides as well, because one of the high sides blew up on that card. Like, it failed open, so it just ran as a 5-phase for a bit. And I think I put like a low side MOSFET there. Which is not why the card ended up dying. The card died to a dead memory module, funnily enough. But yeah, so I have a new card to mess with. It's a bit of a nicer PCB. It's another 7950. I really enjoyed playing with the 7950. It is an A22AG, exactly like the other card I have, and this seems to even have pre-made... Well, actually, I think the reference card also has this. Like the not the reference 7970 PCB, funnily enough, but the reference 7950 PCB, I think also has this. So this is for I2C. If you have an Elmo EVC, you can plug this in, and you get complete control over the voltage controller, and you can set whatever voltage you want, and you can do stuff like load line and switching frequency as well. Though I did check, and this has actually working software voltage control, which I didn't expect, because I thought I heard something about Sapphire locking down voltage control on their cards, which this one doesn't. This one you can set up to 1.3 core and up to 1.7 memory voltage, just in Afterburner with this one. So that's interesting. But yeah, AMD likes using nicer, more like digital controllers, so this has EVC capability. And let's put the VRM heatsink back on. I don't like looking at that filthy thermal pad. I did check if the card has the old graphics card smell, and it doesn't, probably because it has that custom heatsink on it. Like, I can't really describe it. If you've smelt it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The old graphics card smell. It's like not a bad smell, but it's a very intense smell. That if you have a card that has that smell and you turn it on, like your entire room will smell like it. After a few minutes of like the fans putting air through the heatsink, and this one doesn't have that. Yeah, and I hope I can remove that shim from it, because otherwise this heatsink is a lot less useful than I thought. I'm still not complaining, it's a 15 euro 7950. But I kind of wanted to have the heatsink working for like other stuff, because I can't use this on like GTX 780 Ti's, 980 Ti's, because they will have the edges go over this part of the cold plate. So that's not great. And yeah, so that's a quick video looking at this 7950. I plan to do quite a lot of, just play around with this quite a lot. I'll investigate the issue why it only has 4 PCIe lanes. I already checked all the capacitors, they are fine. But I don't know what else it might be. Maybe I just need to put it in the ultrasonic cleaner that fixed cards in the past. Maybe it'll do the same again. And yeah, even if it's only at 4 lanes, I can still overclock this. I can still run things like GPU Pi. And this is a 3.0 card anyway. Like, if it was only at 8 lanes, I wouldn't be concerned, because this is, I think, the first time they did PCIe 3.0. So, like, it probably doesn't need a full 16x 3.0 interface. So if it was at just 8 lanes, I think it would be perfectly fine, but like just 4 lanes, I'm not entirely sure if this is gonna have a negative performance impact on it. So I hope I can fix that. So yeah, nothing else to really say. Took a look at the 7950, it's a nicer PCB, and I'm just repeating myself at this point. Yeah, I'm going to mess with this. And there will be other videos about the other two cards as well that I did. There will be videos about the FM2 stuff. Like I have things to work on now. It's kind of nice. So until then, goodbye.